Hello, and you are watching UZ Report World News with me, Davron Jumaev. The president of the Kyrgyz Republic paid a state visit to Uzbekistan on Thursday at the invitation of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. The main events of the Uzbek-Kyrgyz summit at the highest level began at the Koksaroi residence. Mirziyoyev congratulated his Kyrgyz counterpart Sadir Japarov on his election as president of the Kyrgyz Republic and expressed support for his efforts to ensure the peaceful life and well-being of the Kyrgyz people. The heads of state highly appreciated the current level of bilateral relations. They discussed a wide range of issues related to the further development of cooperation in political, trade and economic, transport and communication, and other areas. The presidents reaffirmed their determination to strengthen the strategic partnership on the basis of equality and mutual benefit, as well as their commitment to the implementation of the previously adopted documents. An agreement was reached to maintain a regular political dialogue at the highest levels in order to progressively expand the cooperation in all areas. They emphasized the historical significance of the agreement on the Uzbek-Kyrgyz state border signed on September 5, 2017. To complete the delimitation of the remaining sections of the border, the Intergovernmental Commission was instructed to intensify negotiations. The Kyrgyz president expressed support for Uzbekistan's efforts to strengthen cooperation and integration in Central Asia. Further on, the negotiations continued with the participation of the official delegations of the two countries. Mirziyoyev said there was a potential to double the volume of bilateral trade. To this end, the parties agreed to take the necessary measures to supply products that are in high demand in the markets of the two countries, including those with high added value, export-import operations, and the development of foreign trade infrastructure. Agreements were reached on the implementation of specific industrial cooperation projects in various sectors of the economy. In particular in the areas of organizing the assembly of passenger cars, agricultural and household appliances in Kyrgyzstan, as well as the production of textile products and construction materials in the border regions. Agreements were reached on the implementation of specific industrial cooperation projects in various sectors of the economy, in particular in the areas of organizing the assembly of passenger cars, agriculture and household appliances in Kyrgyzstan, as well as the production of textile products and construction materials in the border regions. The construction of the Uzbekistan Kyrgyzstan China railway, according to the presidents, fully meets the fundamental interests of the two countries and would contribute to increasing the attractiveness of the region as the most profitable and efficient transit corridor. The parties reaffirmed their commitment to the integrated and rational use of water and energy resources in Central Asia. An agreement was reached on the development of long-term sustainable mechanisms for cooperation in this area. Uzbekistan expressed its readiness to participate in the implementation of hydropower projects in Kyrgyzstan. The parties agreed to develop cooperation in the fields of science, education, culture, sports and tourism. The president of Kyrgyzstan also expressed gratitude for the humanitarian assistance provided by Uzbekistan during the coronavirus pandemic. Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan have agreed to create a $50 million joint investment fund. This was announced by Uzbek Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade Sardor Umurzakov, and Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance and Economy of Kyrgyzstan Ulugbek Karmishakov. The authorized capital of the fund in the near future is to be expanded to $200 million. As part of the Uzbek-Kyrgyz Business Forum, which was underway in Tashkent on March 11, Umurzakov noted that the fund being created will become a catalyst for the development of cooperation. He said the investment fund would support a number of new joint projects, primarily in the field of industrial cooperation. This is the point of growth that we should use today, the Deputy Prime Minister said. Umurzakov also added that despite the world trade has suffered a decline amid the pandemic, the trade turnover between the two countries on the country has increased. We need to increase our trade turnover to $1 billion and then to $2 billion. I think this is a possible task, Umurzakov noted. The Uzbek Central Bank has preserved its main rate unchanged at 14%. The press service of the regulator said on March 11. It said that in January-February 2021, the inflation rate slightly accelerated and amounted to 11.6% and 11.4% respectively, under the influence of seasonal factors and rising food prices. According to the regulator's baseline forecast, inflation is expected to slow to 9–10% by the end of 2021. Since the beginning of the year, the inflation expectations of the population and business entities have relatively decreased to 16.3% and 17% respectively, but remain higher than the actual and forecast inflation indicators. Surveys conducted among enterprises show a certain recovery in economic activity in February after the January decline under the influence of seasonal factors. Nevertheless, the value of the February index of economic activity was formed below the December 2020, the central bank notes. The demand for financial resources in the form of loans and foreign currency is recovering. During January-February of this year, the volume of loans allocated by commercial banks amounted to $1.8 billion, it added. Against the background of the recovery of external demand, export receipts, including gold, during January-February soared by 8% compared to the corresponding period last year, having reached $1.4 billion. At the same time, export revenues in February amounted to $743 million, up to 13% compared to January this year. Prices for cement and other building materials is expected to surge as the regulator expects a significant increase in the construction sector. Uzbekistan by the end of this year plans to construct high-rise buildings for 45,000 apartments, of which 26,614 will be sold at the expense of mortgages, according to a decree of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. To secure credit, the Ministry of Finance is to place funds worth over $770 million in domestic banks. According to the mortgage program, from March the 1st, apartment buildings will be built in rural areas throughout the country. The mortgage is to be allocated with a grace period of 6 months with a down payment of at least 15% for 20 years. Low-income families who require better housing conditions are to be paid a 10% subsidy for the down payment. Per square place of housing in rural areas is said to cost some $400 and $500 in cities. In the capital city, per square price starts from $540. To reduce the cost of new houses, the import of cement is to enjoy zero customs duty until October the 1st this year. Earlier this month, Mirziyoyev stressed the need to provide housing for all segments of the population and expand the opportunities for choice. A new mobile clinic has been delivered to Uzbekistan to diagnose and treat patients in remote regions. The medical complex was handed over by the Russian government under the UN AIDS program. The mobile medical complex is set up on the platform of a Kamaz truck and is designed for quick response and initial examination of patients, especially where access to medical services is particularly difficult. It is equipped with a set of necessary medical equipment for instrumental, laboratory, functional, and ultrasound diagnostics. It will provide primary health care, obstetrician, gynecologist, and cardiologist services. In addition, the medical clinic will conduct examinations and identify especially dangerous infections.
Health authorities in Denmark, Norway, and Iceland suspended the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine shots on Thursday, following reports of the formation of blood clots in some people who had received the vaccine. The announcement comes after Austria stopped using a batch of AstraZeneca shots while investigating a death from coagulation disorders and an illness from a pulmonary embolism. Still, the EU's medicine regulator said the vaccine's benefits outweighed the risks and could continue to be administered. Denmark suspended the AstraZeneca shots for 2 weeks after a 60-year-old woman who was given a shot from the same batch used in Austria formed a blood clot and died. Denmark said the suspension was also prompted by reports, quote, of possible serious side effects from other European countries. Some health experts said there was little evidence to suggest the AstraZeneca vaccine should not be administered. One expert told Reuters it's extremely difficult to distinguish a causal effect from a coincidence. AstraZeneca told Reuters in a written statement that the safety of its vaccine had been extensively studied in human trials, and peer-reviewed data confirmed it was generally well tolerated. The drug maker said this week there had been, quote, no confirmed serious adverse events associated with the vaccine. It also said it was in contact with Austrian authorities about the death and would fully support their investigation.
1 year after the World Health Organization officially declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic, the vaccine rollout is gathering pace and beginning to bear fruit. But one of the lingering questions about the vaccine deployment: can vaccine developers pump out enough vials to keep up with demand? Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla told Reuters in a TV interview Thursday that his company is doing its part and is likely to exceed its vaccine production targets by as much as 20% this year.
We announced that we felt that we will be able to do 2 billion doses by the end of this year. I reviewed a couple of days ago our situation and the readiness, and we are going to do way more than that. We will exceed clearly this year the 2 billion doses, and our steady state, which will be, let's say, full on an annual basis on a 2 year, we will be able to make 3 billion doses.
Bourla's production optimism comes amid new real-world data from Pfizer and partner BioNTech, which suggests its vaccine is largely effective in preventing virus spread by those without symptoms.
The most impressive is that this is the first time that we got data about asymptomatic infections. And the data reveals so far 94% effectiveness against asymptomatic infections. This is very, very important for society. And not for the individuals because they don't have any symptoms, but they are the ones that clearly replicate the virus into society because they don't know that they have it and they don't take the measures of isolation that those that they have it take. And they spread the virus.
The data show Pfizer's current vaccine is effective on the original COVID-19 strain and on the emerging and highly contagious UK variant. More tests need to be done on a variant discovered in South Africa. Pfizer is ready to tweak the vaccine if need be.
If we discover that this one, after some tests, create concerns and we need to go ahead and produce a new vaccine, we will be able to produce it within 100 days.
The U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday approved a pair of gun control bills as Democrats seized upon a shifting political landscape that they said improved chances for enacting new laws after years of failed attempts. The first measure passed the House 227 to 203 with support from 8 Republicans. It would close a long-standing loophole in gun laws by expanding background checks to those purchasing weapons over the internet, at gun shows, and through certain private transactions. The second bill passed 219 to 210, with 2 Republicans supporting it. It would give authorities 10 business days for federal background checks to be completed before a gun sale can be licensed. Currently, it's 3 days. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said bipartisan support for the bills would lead the drumbeat of change across America.
If you're afraid to vote for gun violence prevention because of your political survival, understand this: the political survival of none of us is more important than the survival of our children.
Republicans opposing the bills argued that the legislation would not make streets safer and would infringe upon the constitutional right to bear arms. President Joe Biden is a supporter of expanded gun control measures. But the legislation will face a tougher battle in the U.S. Senate, where Democrats and Republicans are split 50-50. The bills would likely need 60 votes to pass. Many Democrats want to go even further than Thursday's measures by banning sales of some high-capacity military-style rifles that can fire ammunition rapidly.
The U.S. envoy for climate change, John Kerry, this week met with European leaders to deliver a clear message from Washington. America is back in the fight against global warming.
We're back to be partners. We're back to be part of the fight to get this job done.
But a new report out Thursday presented the challenge in stark terms. The United States must slash its greenhouse gas emissions between 57 and 63% below 2005 levels before the end of this decade. No less than that if it is to meet President Joe Biden's long-term goal of zero net emissions by 2050. A report from Climate Action Tracker, or CAT, an independent scientific analysis produced by researchers, concluded that in order for the United States to do its share to limit the rise of global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the goal of the Paris Climate Agreement, it needs to cut at least 57% of its emissions before 2030. Biden pledged to bring the United States back into the Paris Accord, an agreement abandoned by the Trump administration. Biden's climate team, led by National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy and Climate Envoy Kerry, is working with all government agencies and holding meetings with utilities and car companies as it crafts its new goal.
And we should be responsible to future generations by making sure that this decade does what the scientists tell us it needs to do. That takes a lot of hard work, and we look forward to the work.
The CAT report says that the Biden administration plan to decarbonize the U.S. power sector by 2030 is consistent with a Paris Agreement pathway, but it needs to strengthen plans to slash emissions in buildings and vehicles.
A drone has taken viewers into a place that some may not dare visit right now, a bowling alley. The nearly minute-and-a-half-long video titled Right Up Our Alley was filmed in just one shot. No cuts or edits to the original footage. Director of photography with Raleigh Studios, Jay Christensen, explains how it was shot earlier this month in Minneapolis.
It's a Cinewoop, and so it's literally just a quad that it's pretty small and able to fit through small spaces. And the transmitter is this camera down here, and it just goes right to the goggles. And then the GoPro's what's getting your cinematic video at the end of the day. And obviously there's no audio you can get from it because it's a buzzing drone. So everything for sound has always got to be in post, no matter what, unfortunately.
The studio said it took 10 to 12 attempts over a couple hours before they had the perfect one take. Their patience paid off. The video footage of people hanging out, bowling, and succeeding at it has gone viral on the internet. Director Anthony Jaska.
It's more of a scene than a story, right? It's not exactly, it's painting the picture of kind of getting back out with the friends and a night at a bowling alley, which I think we all really miss. Yeah, it just paints this picture of coming back to normal. And we got to remember these places like Bryant Lake Bowling.
The filmmakers say they wanted to fly into the bowling alley to remind people that such businesses are in need of support.
This is bowling. There are rules.
Kupang, South Korea's largest e-commerce company, made a huge splash on the New York Stock Exchange Thursday in the biggest U.S. IPO so far this year. The stock surged as much as 81%, instantly seeing a surge in its market value to around $109 billion. Founded in 2010 by Korean-American billionaire Bom-Suk Kim, Kupang rose to prominence after launching its guaranteed same-day or next-day delivery service in South Korea. Its spectacular debut further bolsters the fortunes of SoftBank's $100 billion Vision Fund, which owns a 35% stake in the company, helping it bounce back from an annual loss last March. Kupang's successful share offering comes as the U.S. IPO market is at its strongest in more than 2 decades, and investors flock to buy shares in tech companies that have profited during the global health crisis. Kupang's IPO surpasses the $2.15 billion raised by dating app Bumble earlier this year. Analysts in South Korea say the smashing response is thanks to its market leader position in the country. According to Euromonitor, Kupang was the top South Korean e-commerce firm in 2020 and the 10th largest on Earth.
Jet engine maker Rolls-Royce plunged to a $5.6 billion loss in 2020. That was worse than analysts expected. The slump comes with thousands of planes stuck on the ground. Since Rolls-Royce charges airlines for the number of hours its engines fly, that spelled trouble for earnings. The company says the worst is behind it though. Rolls-Royce expects to burn through less cash this year, predicting a travel upturn in the second half. Hitting its targets will require airlines to fly 55% of their 2019 capacity this year. But the UK company says it has plenty of liquidity and could survive even a severe downside scenario. The firm plans to strengthen its balance sheet with asset sales totaling around $2.8 billion. Most of that will come from the sale of Spanish unit ITP Aero, which Rolls says is on track. Investors appeared to welcome Thursday's news. Rolls-Royce shares were up 2.7% by mid-morning. One analyst told Reuters the firm still had much to do, but called its plans feasible.
These were the top headlines for today. Stay safe and goodbye.